It's actually happening. I have potential Cyberpunk DLC announcement and details. There's also a few things going on in the creator space, and a few other notable tweets from the CEO and project managers. What's up, world? It's back here with another video, and today we're checking out all things Cyberpunk. But we have some potential Cyberpunk announcement dates, as well as some details surrounding that. I've gone down and tracked down a few tweets that might potentially allude to certain things, so let's just jump right into that. Okay, so first up is a bit of major news. We're having some content creators actually receiving press kits at the moment. And this means something big. Normally when people receive a press kit, it's to promote a game or promote the DLC or even promote something current that could be coming around the corner. Typically, people don't really receive press kits randomly. But from the images here, you can see that Jesse on Twitter actually did receive his press kit and even shows off some really cool glasses. Again, to receive physical items like this, it's usually either for the initial release of the game, sometimes it's a few weeks after the initial release of the game for a thanks, maybe for bringing fans to the series, or whatever have you. I think the only example I could think of is Asmongold and the Elden Ring stuff, although maybe he received the Elden Ring stuff beforehand and he just didn't open it until way after the game released. But I do think they also sent him some stuff as well a few weeks later, just as like an appreciation. And again, we're not really in the midst of anything. No DLC has released for Cyberpunk. The game obviously didn't just come out. So we're kind of at the state as why would they would release a press kit or seemingly items, which typically are press kits, to a bunch of content creators who are into the game itself, seemingly would mean that there's probably some DLC announcement and some other release dates being announced sometime soon. Because it does take a while for them to build hype around these press kits and the initial release of the DLC. And these companies know that they have to give creators a few days or at least a week or so to get all this stuff together so that they can make a presentable video. But we'll have to see what that ends up being. Now I also wanted to go over these tweets because a few of the fans pointed out some and I also found some that weren't talked about. But we have a tweet here from Radic. And he adds the Cyberpunk game Twitter, are you considering getting a new phone anytime soon? And the official Cyberpunk then tweeted, good point, we've reached it to our IT team. They told us we're eligible for an upgrade in early 2024. Patience is key. And the iPhone 14 actually gets released next week. And so a fan pointed out on the Reddit that this might be meaning that there is something coming next week. And I actually have another verifiable source that could definitely allude to there being an announcement next week. Now, the other notable tweet here is from CD Projekt Red themselves, and they said, planning to attend SXSW, don't miss our presentation. Find out how essential music is for the world building of Cyberpunk. They list off their composer, I'll probably get the name wrong, so I'm not even going to say it. And these guys are the senior composer and soundtrack supervisor for Cyberpunk 2077. Again, this could just be about the music and how they made the music for the game and stuff, but I do feel like at the end, if they do have a presentation, they're probably going to show off some DLC stuff, because this is where it's going to be the most hype. And I think this is the biggest, most verifiable tweet for an announcement happening next week, which looks to be March 14th, Tuesday at 4 p.m. And Tuesday is a notable release day for a lot of games. It's also a notable release day for a ton of DLC content and announcement stuff. It's just always on a Tuesday, it seems like. So this is definitely probably where the announcement is going to be held, or at least the release date and stuff of that nature. Maybe even more of a showcase of the DLC, although we already got the 2 trailers already, but those were a few months ago, the first one being over 6 months ago and the second one being over 3 months ago. Now also notably with this DLC is it's going to be a paid DLC. The last one was free, so this is the paid DLC that they announced a long time ago, and it's been over 2 years now since this DLC has kind of been in the works, it seems like. As the Edge Runner DLC just seemed to add a bunch of quality of life updates, didn't really add anything new story-wise, which was probably just a big promotion tool for the show, showing that they could actually release content during the showcase. But if they've been working on this DLC for 2 years, and this is the real DLC, by the way, not like the little quality of life stuff, it's probably going to be a pretty major story arc, and is probably going to allude to a lot of things within the story. As I've heard, and I've unfortunately never played Witcher 3, but I heard those DLCs really do hold up, and they are quite amazing. And so, seemingly, this is probably going to be Cyberpunk's only major DLC, at least I would think. I think they announced back in the roadmap that there was going to be 2 DLCs, and I believe Edge Runners was one of them, this being the other major content. And this is probably going to be the only story expansion for Cyberpunk, as we do have some other news which seemingly is a bit odd, at least at this time in current. But it looks like we might be getting a Cyberpunk sequel that's being worked on already, or at least they're hiring a bunch of people for it, as we have some spontaneous applications around Cyberpunk 2077 sequel. which again is just the start of a process for a sequel, but it is nice to know that we probably are going to be getting, and more than likely going to be getting, a Cyberpunk sequel, which I really was hoping for because I think this game does not get enough praise that it did deserve. It got taken off the PlayStation Store and all this stuff because people wanted to play on 20-year-old hardware, but the game was amazing on PC, and it's probably one of the best story games I've ever played, alongside of BioShock Infinite and a few others. Now, the information around this DLC is a bit scarce. However, we do have some details and a few new things that have just got released. One of those things is that Cyberpunk has teased that the expansion will play out like a spy thriller, introducing players to a fresh district of Night City. So this DLC will be in a completely new setting. I know for some of the imagery it almost looked like we were in Pacifica, and it kind of did reminisce of those buildings and some of the imagery. However, here clearly from this statement, it seems like that will not be the case. Now, as far as the release date and price details go, there are no pricing details yet, although I would assume it's a $20 expansion. That's typical of the expansion DLC pricing. And we also had a Polish insider in his podcast say that CDPR had an internal release date and that it was in June. And he thought that they were going to show this at the Game Awards, oddly enough. Now, around the press kit itself and around the items that some of these content creators are receiving, I have done a bit more of research around this, and it does look like a few content creators actually received this package also back in December. And it was claimed to be a New Year's present. However, I think with the second batch coming out kind of late like this, and the South by Southwest event happening sometime soon, and them having a presentation at that event, I do feel like we are going to get an announcement for the DLC as far as release date goes, pricing, and other notable details. Maybe even an additional trailer. And some of the other comments here talk about it being released in maybe April or May, although that does seem a little bit soon and early. Now, the reason for it being in May or April is that it should have released by the end of the month, according to a few notable creators and some people in the inside industry who were thinking that it was going to release in Q1. And I can't find the exact official source on it, but there are some commenters saying that CDPR did say that it was going to release in Q1, which would mean that it needs to be released by the end of the month, which I can't see happening. So maybe a bit of delay for the DLC in general as far as what they were looking for originally. We will have to wait and see, and I would look for on Tuesday the South by Southwest presentation at that 4 p.m. Central Time. But I'm going to have all the links to everything I talked about down below, as well as the South by Southwest event and how to watch it and where you can watch it. I'll also have a time zone converted down below in case you need it. Other than that, I'm hoping to hear from you guys and what you're expecting from this DLC and kind of what you want out of it. Also, what you think the price point may be, although I think it's pretty set in stone at the $20 typical. And when you might think this thing's actually going to release, given all the information that I provided. But that does about cover for today's video, and I hope you enjoyed. And I'd like to like and subscribe, and until the next one, deuces.